Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Mark. And today for this podcast, we're back out at Federal Mills.
Yeah, we like coming out here, and we shouldn't tell Alex, our guest, but we did duck next door and have a coffee. We got here a bit earlier, but anyway.
That's right. Now, Mark, by the time this podcast goes to air, we will have been involved in the first couple of days of judging of the Geelong Business Awards.
We will.
So it's looking forward to that again.
Yes, it's always interesting to see who's new in there. It's nice to see some old entrants, but it's nice to see the new ones. So
that's right. I just hope they get a good number of entries this year. But anyway, that goes over a 3-month period, the judging of it.
It's a long time.
And it does take up a lot of time, unfortunately or unfortunately.
No, it's good fun.
Yeah.
So today's guest, Bill, is Alex Papli from Hypergen. Welcome, Alex.
G'day.
Good morning, Alex.
Good
and
morning.
I went to I think it's RDV, ran the AI conference in Torquay.
Yes.
And Amir Kutab dragged me along to listen, which was really good. And that's where I met Alex, and we had a chat at the beginning. And so here we are today. So welcome, Alex.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
That's right. And today's topic, or Alex's specialty, is AI, of course, as we did with another podcast with Amir only a couple of weeks ago.
We did. So
AI, the whole world is AI.
Everything's AI,
It is.
and I'm sure we'll talk more about that. So, Alex, we always start with, where did you go to primary school?
I went to primary school and Canterbury Primary up in Melbourne.
Well, finally we've got one outside of Geelong.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we had one in Gippsland at one stage.
Yeah, we did too.
That's right.
And then high school?
I left Canterbury Primary in grade 5 and got a scholarship to Melbourne Grammar. So I was there
Very cool.
all the way through to end of year 12.
Yep. And while you were there, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I didn't really know. I think I ended up gravitating towards computers probably around year 9 or 10, which is like 1992 back for me. And I knew I was going to do something with computers, but there wasn't really a career for. I mean, there was a career for people in computers, but there weren't many people in computers, and no one I knew. So I went down the commerce direction and didn't particularly enjoy audit, but ended up just gravitating towards IT.
Yeah, it's interesting if you went back there now, of course, they've probably got an IT lab.
Yeah,
Right?
they did actually have a computer
Yeah.
lab at the school. We were pretty fortunate, and I remember getting in trouble because do you remember the locks that you could lock a keyboard?
Yeah.
You bring a keyboard. They're all the same key, right? So you just go along and lock all the keyboards.
Oh, yes.
So got in a bit of trouble for that occasionally.
Actually, it's interesting how things have changed. Well, I was stalking you on LinkedIn and looking at your
yeah.
background. My brother at one stage did computing at uni, and I'm pretty sure at Macquarie Uni, might have been Macquarie Uni, and it was all punch cards.
Right.
And you went into this one room where there was this one big mainframe, and you had to write this code, and then you'd run all these punch cards through, and if there was a slight error, it rejected the whole lot, and you'd start again. Now, you can sit down with some AI and write the software.
It's pretty crazy. It's funny.
It's a huge change.
It's funny. I've never actually seen a punch card. And
Have
I
it?
feel
There you
like
go.
I feel a bit like incomplete.
I'm probably showing my age. I'm
Well,
showing my
it's a bit yeah.
I've been in IT for a long time, and I'm like, I haven't seen a punch card.
Alex, it's like showing a young child, or like my 12-year-old grandkids, a cassette tape. And particularly, what was the cassette, the version 8? Was it the great big fat one?
eight track.
But just on punch cards, I studied RMIT and business studies in the 60s.
Yeah.
And we were using punch cards.
Yeah, right.
I still remember them. They were like, are you familiar with a pianola?
Yeah, the piano.
with
absolutely.
and the reel.
Yeah.
That
Same principle.
It was the same principle.
We had one of them. We used to
Yeah,
pedal it.
that's right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so while you were at high school, any jobs?
Yeah, I had a few, quite a lot actually. I started, technically I guess my scholarship was actually a music scholarship. So I went and I actually sang for St Paul's Cathedral for a long time, and that was sort of, I guess, paid me to get to school. So I'd say that was, I enjoyed it, but that was probably my first unofficial job. And then when my voice broke around end of year 10, I didn't really know what to do, and I was pretty small and wasn't really doing a lot of the sport. So I ended up getting a job at Target. So good old Red Circle Boutique,
Once
as
again.
we called it, because it was in Target Camberwell. So anyway, that was fun. So I did that, and then after that, what did I do? I went to Geelong, transferred, and did a heap of jobs down here through uni.
So what was your first real job?
The first real job was I got a graduate job at Telstra when I finished uni, but through uni I worked, there was a company called Lonsdale Computers. I did a bit of work for them in a call centre down I think on Myers Street. It was sort of underground a bit.
Yep.
I also worked for an accountant on Yarra Street, and it was funny actually. I was doing audit, and didn't really enjoy it. I ended up just fixing their computers, and then I was in the Geelong Association of Students and ran the O Week in 1998, and so there's a lot of other random things I did through it. But my first actual real job was Telstra. Got a grad job in 2000 and was there for over a decade.
And what were you doing there? What was your job there?
Network. It was customer facing. It was like a network engineering design job. So back then, companies would have multiple sites and they'd try to connect them up,
Yep.
and so they needed people to help them understand how to design the networks to make them all talk and securely and all that. And then just evolved into things like cloud computing and all the other things that Telstra got into.
Looking at your profile, of course, it's as our sliding doors issue, isn't it, Mark? Because Telstra, Salesforce, Telstra, right? And you've gone from one area to the other, leading up to where you are today with your own business.
Yes.
So there's quite a story behind all of that.
It is. It's funny. I was talking to someone. I think it took me 25 years to build the courage to set up my own business. I think I've been wanting to do it probably since I was at school, and it just took me a long time to get the confidence to do it. And then things come along the way in life, and you get distracted, or you find you're just enjoying what you're doing. But yeah, Telstra's just it felt like a big family, and so got some really great relationships there. I saw in 2009 the change for cloud computing, and we were doing, I guess, what we would call hosting back in the day, or co-location. When we were talking to IT departments, they'd say, well, we've got our servers in this little air-conditioned room, and I've spent all this money. I'm like, we can probably provide a more reliable, much cheaper solution by picking them up and moving them. So I went through that whole journey of before cloud computing, and then when Salesforce started sort of coming along, I went and helped them open their Melbourne office, and that was when I resigned from Telstra, and then sort of ended up going back to help them with some acquisitions.
So what were you doing with Salesforce?
So I was it was in a sort of an account manager role. So and I'm fairly technical, so I was just helping people understand how they move to go into the cloud securely. Set up customer databases and CRMs back then. Just generally just helping people understand. It was tiny back then. It was like, I think we were in a service office in Collins Street. There was about 6 people, and then it grew. I think like Melbourne's now like 300 or 400 or something. One of the top floors on the other end of Collins Street, and a few thousand people in Australia. So it's much bigger than what it was when I was there.
Tell me, in the time at Telstra, of course, there would have been a lot of lessons learned.
Yeah.
So what lessons have you been able to take about? Because in theory, you did a long-term apprenticeship.
Yes.
In one way.
Yeah.
So what are the key lessons do you think you learnt from Telstra that enabled you to make that change to your own business? And has that put you in a better frame of mind to be successful in your own business?
Yeah, I think there's a few, like Telstra, I think internally we'd always say, it's a bit crazy. There's always, there's processes that could be better. But then when you look at it for a company that's at the time was probably 30,000, actually I think it was about 50,000 people, it was actually pretty well run given the amount of people that you're talking about. And so I think you certainly appreciate the importance of processes, but also the importance of not having a process sometimes and letting people just think for themselves and figure this stuff out. So I think that was it. Relationships is a big one, and trust. Telstra was one of those brands where it was one of those door opening brands, and I guess one of the things I've seen probably through my career has always been, I've been at, although Salesforce, no one knew who we were then. It was people just thought they didn't know where we were, but Telstra having that, people would always take a call and they'd always have a meeting. You didn't know quite what they were going to do or say to you, and it was very polarising sometimes. So I think I got a thick skin in that regard. So some people would get angry at you because something had happened with their mobile phone, but at the same time, you learnt how to deal with complicated situations. You understood that the human was separate from sometimes the business problem. And as I said, some really wonderful relationships and good mentors and coaches throughout. So, yeah.
It's interesting, Mark, isn't it? Because they're such a big business.
Well, it's a respected brand. I mean, we love to hate Telstra, but we admire them too. You pick up your mobile phone and 99.999% of times it works. And
it's so true.
But they're a big target too. And when something goes wrong, they really do get belted. And I know, thinking about my own phone system, I've signed up with Telstra when my first mobile phone. I don't think I've ever... No, I haven't moved. I'm still there.
Yeah, I've never moved. And I use Big Pond email.
Yep.
And it's my initial and surname, which is nearly impossible to get these days unless you put hyphenates or whatever in. That's how far back I started using email. And it works.
It's really interesting. These big brands like Telstra's one, and obviously there's a big airline that's got themselves in trouble recently for security breaches. But the thing that I look at is these companies and these organisations have got a social contract with us. And the thing that I really liked about Telstra, and it's not just them, there's some of the energy companies are the same, the things that we love about them are, when there's a bushfire, they're the first company out pretty much on scene fixing stuff. They've always there if there's floods. There's so many really nice things they bring to the community. And I think that's where we get pretty disappointed when brands let us down, because it's actually not about the brand itself. It's about, there's a level of responsibility that I think, they have just with, who they are and what they are and what they mean to us. Yeah. And so, we look at our phone and, blame Telstra or whatever. But there's that bigger piece that they do, and maybe that's another thing I picked up was that expectation, and particularly in AI now. I look at it, the IT company or industry talk about responsible AI. I think that they're missing a big piece, which is around ethical AI. And I look at things from, what's the right thing to do? How should we think about this? And maybe that's come from Telstra and just that general expectation, you do.
Everyone's talking about AI. You can't go through a day without AI being mentioned somewhere. So tell us a bit about Hypergen, because...
Yeah. Well, before you do, we've missed a big chunk. You went to Microsoft.
I did. Oh. Yeah. Well, there's a bit of a chunk there. It's funny. So I was at Salesforce for a few years. Then I actually went off and moved back in CRM, but in the Microsoft space. Again, I was wanting to become and build my own business, but I got shy, so I ended up just joining one just to see how they'd run it, to see, if I could do it. And then I got called up by Telstra to help them actually acquire a couple of companies. So back in 2015, they were on an acquisition spree. So I sat with them and did due diligence on a company called Redify and another one called Cloud that they purchased. And there was one more as well, just don't remember the name. Did that for about a year. Got a little bit bored, and then went off and did some other things again in the Microsoft ecosystem. But then Salesforce tapped me on the shoulder and asked me to come back. And so I went back there in what we call it a technical sort of customer-facing role. And I was the lead for the consumer goods industry. And so spent a few years there working with some of the biggest our big grocer in Melbourne, as well as a bunch of retailers and a few other businesses as well, in a sort of chemicals and manufacturing but consumer brand space. Did that for a few years, and then I got a patent in vision-based AI. They had a product which you could take a photo of what do we call it? A planogram, if you know them in supermarkets. And they had this solution that you could take a photo of a planogram. This is about 2018, I think, and it would identify all the products on it and help you understand your market share. The problem was that you couldn't train it, because if you think about it, all the products, if you think about a Nutella or a pack of VBs, the labelling changes. Every time there's Christmas, there's a new labelling for VB or whatever, and so you can't train these models to actually keep up to date with with the new labels, so they don't work. And so I developed an approach to use video to speed up the training process, and took it from, say, a day's effort per product down to about 15 seconds. And so that got, we did the paperwork in 2019 or something like that. And they take a while to go. And as it was going through, COVID hit, Microsoft were expanding, they were doing a bit of work, and they called me and said, hey, do you want to come and join us as an AI lead on some of the biggest enterprise accounts? And like, well, that's a pretty good offer. So I went there, and that's how I landed in Microsoft.
And what were they like to work for?
Really good. It's funny. I think that when you work with people that are unbelievably smart, the bar is just really high. And so I think I constantly felt challenged, and it was really good, but it was like exhausting. And particularly with generative AI and all the stuff that's happened, like you're trying to be relevant to customers, and you're learning every day from people, particularly from Redmond and people developing product and working close with OpenAI. Like I was in a meeting with a customer once, and I had one of the board members from OpenAI with me, and it was 4 of us in a meeting room. It was just extraordinary, and just sort of seeing like the level that you're working at and going, I know I'm the least intelligent person in this room. It stretched you a lot. And so I think exhausted, but like highly energized at the same time is probably the way I'd put it.
Well, Microsoft brand, we're talking about Telstra before and how we're long-term sort of, I guess, clients. Same applies to Microsoft. I don't think I've ever not had Microsoft as my operating system at home.
Yeah.
And now, of course, the first button I go to when I'm looking for information is Copilot, which is sitting at the bottom of the screen.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And again, like I think this is, I go back to social contracts, and I think that we need to figure out how do we think about these big US companies and what social contract do they have with us, and what do we want? Because I think that's a really important factor. But yeah, they're prevalent, and particularly for business, like I specialize in helping make AI secure, because it's easy to build it, but it's not easy to make it secure. And when you think about all these companies out there, they've typically got like, I think 50% of Australian organisations have got like cyber insurance. It's like, well, we need to make sure we design stuff that's actually compliant with the insurance policy we just paid for. So there's all those sorts of things that come into it. And so, Microsoft is a pretty good stack to work off. It's got a lot of things that can help you, I guess, reduce your risk.
Cyber insurance, would you buy it? Because I remember going to an AICD presentation at one stage.
I remember it.
The gentleman said I wouldn't buy it because they'll get you anyway.
Yeah, I'm not. I haven't. Maybe that's a sign of the maturity of the business, or maybe just my knowledge, I guess, of what I'm doing. But I feel that. Look, I don't know. I tend to try to not insure unless I feel I need to. Like I've got an old, well, it's not old, it's a 10-year-old Hyundai iX35. I don't know what it's worth, like 10,000 or something. But it was like, we're just going to put it on third-party fire and theft because the likelihood of it getting stolen is pretty low. But I'll take that. And I've been driving for 25 years, and touch wood, I haven't bumped into too many people. So I'm going to sort of hedge my bets there. So I haven't got cyber. Maybe someday some insurer will call me up and say you need it, and they might give me a reason. I haven't got it. I think it depends. Often it might be driven more from, if you've got big customers you're selling to and they say you need to have it, often it's driven that way too.
All right, so now let's get back to
Hypergen.
Hypergen.
Yeah.
So what was the tipping point the day you decided to push the button and go?
Well, yeah, I'd been obviously trying to build up the confidence for a long time. There's probably 2 things. So I was really lucky to be the lead for the Telstra account at Microsoft. And so I helped them do their first AI things, which we've seen publicly and where they've got to. And I wasn't the only person. I had a lot of people behind me and with me. And then I transitioned off them and worked with another probably 8 or so enterprise accounts. And I found that all of them were asking the same questions. And then through that, I educated them, helped them understand how they could use AI across things like safety and so using vision to improve safety, and then collect feedback, and there's a whole lot of other stuff we did, but it was what I call programmatic AI. So it wasn't just something like here's a chat bot off, like Copilot or whatever. It was actually how do we use it as a competitive advantage for our business. And I found that there was still a lot of people that were interested but didn't know how to do that. And I'd had that experience. And I had the experience to build it securely, which was the really key thing. And so I was talking to my wife and it's like, well, you can't quit until you get some work. And I'm like, it's a fair good bit of advice. And so I was also helping a very fast-moving AI agency. They've gone from 2 people now to I think they're at 20 after 12 months, and they're just on a tear. And I was helping them sort of navigate the Microsoft thing. He was an ex-partner at Accenture, or a managing director, because I don't think they have partners, but it was an ex-MD at Accenture. I'd known him from previous work. And I was helping him just trying to navigate the whole Microsoft thing, which is pretty complicated. And he was like, how are you going, Alex? I'm like, I'm sort of ready for a change, but I need to get some work. And he's like, yep, no worries. And then half an hour later, he texts me and said, we've just won an insurer. We need to put AI into our call center. Do you want to do it? And I'm like, honey, can I go on? She's like, yeah, okay. So what the tipping point was, I got a contract to help do that. So that was that went for 4 months and rolled that in. And so really where the business has gone is that I'm often finding myself subcontracting to companies that win AI work, and they say we actually need someone who knows AI, and so they'll call me up and I'll do that, and then I'll build Hypergen as well to build a brand directly.
When I was looking on LinkedIn, your profile, your wife's name came up as well.
Oh, right.
And she's got a similar background.
Yeah,
as you have, yes.
Yeah, we met, funnily enough, when I was at Telstra. So my last role at Telstra was rolling out what we called T-Suite back then, but it was Telstra's first entry into Microsoft Office 365, which is their cloud. And my job was to go out to Microsoft partners and tell them that they need to stop selling servers and move to the cloud. And most of them looked at me blankly and said, Alex, we're making $200 a server and we've got it on auto patch. We're not moving to the cloud. And I don't know if FM said that specifically, but I definitely didn't sell to them. And it wasn't a sales role, it was more of an evangelizing, but they didn't take the bait. But I didn't really think much of it, but I met her about 6 months later at a bar and we somehow remembered each other's name and just went from there. So it's a small world.
That's right.
So tell us about Hypergen then.
Yeah.
Someone picks up the phone and rings you or goes to your website. What's your services? What do you do?
Look, we'll help top to bottom, primarily on the Microsoft stack, do AI. So I generally find that companies want some clarity on how they actually can think about it. So I've got a workshop that I run. It's usually half a day, and helps them first of all demystify and understand how AI actually works. Not like super complex, but it's just enough for them to go, cool. It's not going to eat us. We understand what it does. We understand it doesn't think, but we also know where it works and where it doesn't. And once they do that, I then help them understand all the business cases that, there's about 7 different areas that I'm seeing business cases work with AI. So I'll help them with that. I'll provide them some demos, and then from there, show them a framework on how they can rank and assess opportunities. And once that's happened, then we typically move into proof of concepts and building out, proving out the piece that we need to, like a proof of value. And once we show, yes, this piece here is what we were hoping AI would do and it works, then we think about how do we now deploy this securely and build it in the right way. And, particularly for scale, where that matters, or just from a secure perspective. So I'll go end to end, but certainly I guess where we would say is we can help businesses make business grade AI.
Cool.
That's what we do.
Is there a level of where your work is most effective? For instance, you're not going to go and deal with a one-man show, a woman show that's working from home. But at what level do you believe a company should get serious about looking at the type of work you do?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I've sort of, for the actual work that I do for Hypergen, I would say usually you've got to be about 20 to 30 people as a business size and upwards. And the reason is that anything sort of requires a little bit of custom work, it costs, and you just need to be able to spread the costs across to make it, worthwhile. I'd always though say, like my first point of call is to say, buy before you build. So I would always say, like, don't even think about building anything until we've seen what's available out there. What can we bring into your environment securely before we start building? And building could be just tweaking and configuring as opposed to writing code. But I usually see about 20 to 30 is the small end, and then we go up. I've got customer that's got sort of 3,000 that we're having a chat to. The smallest one I'm working with is about 20 people right now. We're kicking off some work around vision-based AI. Everyone in between. And in the big enterprises, I just subcontract in and just help them do their thing.
So you glad you jumped ship and started your own business?
I am, I am. Like, you're not taking home as much money, but it's nice. Like, I prefer it, and I've had a lot of calls from Microsoft people over the last week or two because they've had some pretty big changes in the way they're going to market, and it's been really interesting. And but I've loved it. It's really. Yeah, it's just enjoyable to go and do my own thing. I have to say, it took me 25 years, as I said, to build up the courage to go and do my own thing, and I thought that was it. And I was talking to someone yesterday saying, every decision requires courage.
That's right. So if I'm a business owner out there and I've got 25 staff and all this, why should I embrace AI?
If I take it back a step, one of the things that every business for as long as ever has been trying to do is improve their processes and streamline, right? And as I say, pretty much every process ground to a halt when you had a PDF or a Word document. So the problem was that I had to either read a PDF and understand it, or I'd be writing something or trying to analyze it. And so as good as we could go, we had these processes sort of grinding to a halt. What AI allows us to do is we can now work with what we call unstructured data, which is all of that information that's just sentences. It's not tidily put into like an Excel spreadsheet that I could work off. It's all a bit messy, and that's what generative AI, which is this new type of AI, excels at. And so, if you're a business owner and you're thinking, hey, I've got these processes where I can see a lot of people double clicking PDFs or writing Word or doing something else that just takes a while. Those are the areas where you can do a lot of work quite quickly to get wins that will help streamline further. So I think that's the way to think about it. The biggest motivation I'm seeing right now is from a competitive perspective. I've either got organisations saying we know that this can be done, and we're concerned that our competitors might do it before us. So there's a first mover thing. But then equally they're saying, hey, if we do it, then we're going to be the first mover, so it's worth it. And finally, if they're selling often to larger organisations, they're concerned that they might insource that capability. So instead they say, look, let's get on the front foot and build out this and offer a more lean, have a leaner offering that can just keep us relevant.
Yeah, I think, and even at our level, Mark, I got an inquiry from a client yesterday who's a farmer actually, and he was struggling with the whole idea of, when I questioned him about job descriptions and policies and procedures and all the rest of it, he had no idea. So last night I flicked him a few things off AI, and I noticed an email there this morning saying, oh, that's great, thanks for that. Well, no, I didn't do it. AI. I checked it to make sure that it was legit. But
it's a tool.
If I didn't use AI, how much time would it have taken me to get organised?
It's so true. It's really interesting, right? Like, I look at it and think, that's a really good use of it. And the thing is that I think about it in sort of 3 steps, particularly if you're trying to create content. It's like, it's really good at the beginning, which is helping you, how do I think about structuring it? Just helping you ideate. The middle piece, though, is really where you want your own cognitive load. Like, you're saying, this is the job to be done. I need to shape it. And I think that's where that critical thinking, that experience, that's where it's really valuable, and I just don't see it being replaced. And so I'm not someone who sees AI as coming and taking out everything. I just don't see that, because there's that human element of saying, how do I make it relevant to this person or this audience or whatever? And so there's some things that are generic, but in many cases you want to just get them just right. And the final part is just tidying up the formatting, the readability, and I think AI does that really well. So I think that there is always going to be that aspect for the human in the middle there. The other thing is too, because of the way they're trained, these models are effectively, it's a time and place. So there's a cut-off date when they were crawling the internet. And as I say, in many respects, they can do a great quality job, but it's also in many respects the lowest common denominator knowledge, unless you really prompt it and really ask it for something more. So what I mean by that is that these things have been trained on Reddit forums and Stack Overflow and, and certainly academic papers and stuff, but it's literally everything. And so when they actually run, they're going to come up with the most likely scenario or the most common theme that came from the corpus of information they were trained on. And so by default, it's sort of going to be at that level. So what you want to do is use that critical thinking to go, what's the bit that's actually important to us? How do I make it really shine? And sometimes even just asking the question differently will pull out different parts of the model that will actually enrich it quite nicely.
That's another question, another issue I've learned is the more questions I ask it on the same subject and the longer the questions I ask, the better the result I get back.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, it's interesting. There's a couple of things to that. I actually say that even though I specialise and I'm an expert in AI, I actually don't think AI is the hard part. I actually think that's really, really easy. The hard part is search, and the hard part is thinking about the right question and the prompt. And so, we do talk a lot about prompt engineering, which I don't really like the term. I think it's prompt artistry is probably a better term because it's really engaging different types of thinking. But that is really important. The more detail, and the way I say it is like a prompt is actually not prompt. It's really long. If you can put in 1,000 words into a prompt, you're going to get a much better response. And so when we think about like corporate information, if I'm building like a policy, like I've got little quick starts for Copilot where we have like a company policy, like you can just do a Q&A over it, right? It's super easy, it's all secure. And the thing is though that I need to make sure I'm surfacing the current policy, not one in draft or an old version. And so, because if I'm bringing all of those things in, they're actually getting injected in the prompt. So then you as a user you just say, what's the policy? It's actually doing a search. And if it's finding old information or incorrect or whatever, it's going to drop that in the prompt. And when it summarizes it's possible, it's going to come back with it. So the specialty I've actually got is actually more about search than it is around AI, because AI just sort of works, right? It's not that hard.
It's there.
Yeah, it's not hard.
And who cares how it works?
Correct.
I know it works.
Correct. And that's the thing. So I think that it's easy to make it look good quick, but getting it right and testing it and doing bulk testing and stuff, that's sort of where we specialise for these bigger companies to go, right, we need it dependable.
Cool. So I was going to say in 5 years' time, but I think that's probably too far out.
5 minutes' time.
In a year's time, what do you think's next?
So I think, we're already seeing themes of it. I think that we spoke a lot about multimodal models a few years ago, which is this idea of rather than just taking in text, they'll take in audio and images. So I think we'll see that will be more and more the case. But and a video is really just a series of image. It's 30 frames a second. So I think we'll see a lot of that. There's probably a couple of aspects to it. So number one will be, I think from a consumer perspective, we're going to start thinking about, do I want like the tabloid experience or do I want the broadsheet experience in terms of like consumption? And I think we'll find like companies like Netflix, and it's going to be interesting because I think if you think out a few years, you'll be able to say, look, I want to watch a movie today and I want it to be, I want it to be set in the Paddock Bakery, but I want it to be in the style of Police Academy, right? And you'll probably find that it can generate it. And I think there'll be a need, or maybe not a need. I think there'll be people that will start creating offerings where you can just do that, right? But that'll be what I call the tabloid experience. Yep. If you want the broadsheet experience and that sort of hire someone created this, I think we're going to value it more. And I was talking to someone recently at a big department store. I was like, you can mix and match, right? Like, so I could go, decorate the house with all the Kmart stuff, which is really cheap and looks fantastic, right? Because they've got an amazing sort of buyer team, I think, in there. But then I could go and buy one really nice piece of art and put it in the house. And the whole thing will still tie together. And I think that it won't be about one or the other. It'll be about both.
Cool.
So that's how I see it going.
I love these conversations. So how do we find Hypergen?
Yeah, on LinkedIn, just Hypergen, or the website hypergen.com.au.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Alex, great conversation.
Another learning session for us, Mark,
It
on
is.
AI.
I love it.
And I can already think of some people I need to refer you to.
Yeah, cool.
All right?
Yeah.
And good luck with that.
Yeah, thanks.
And you know the expression in one of our past podcasts?
Be brave.
Be brave.
It's every day is being brave. So thanks for the opportunity to catch up and love your podcast.
Thank you, Alex.